For this retro anime review, we're going to be looking at Kamui no Ken. Kamui no Ken, or Sword of Kamui, or Dagger of Kamui, is an animated film released in 1985, produced by Madhouse, and directed by Rintarou. This is the first Rintarou anime that I reviewed in the series, which is a little surprising to me because he's definitely one of the most important directors of the 80s and 90s. He directed a ton of classic movies and OVAs, worked on a number of other classics, and was a founding member of Studio Madhouse, which was one of the best animation studios of all time. It also has animation done by Yoshiaki Kawajiri, which gives you a clue of what type of visuals and animation you're going to see in this movie. Kawajiri being one of the greatest animators of all time and possibly the greatest of the 80s and 90s. If you're a fan of anime from that era, you would definitely recognize his work on things like Ninja Scroll, Wicked City, Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, or Goku Midnight Eye, which I reviewed in my last episode. This movie is based off of a series of novels written by Tetsu Yano. The main character is Jiro, who is a young boy at the start of the story. He lives in a small village with his mother and his sister. One day while he is out, a shinobi comes to their home and kills his mother and sister. When he returns, he discovers their bodies and finds a dagger with a unique design on its hilt next to his mother's body. Some villagers come by and they see Jiro holding the dagger, and they see the bodies of his mother and sister and assume that Jiro must have killed them. They form a mob to capture Jiro and punish him for the crime of killing his family, so Jiro is forced to flee his home with nothing but the dagger. Jiro then comes in contact with a strange priest by the name of Tenkai, who tells Jiro that he knows who the man who killed his family is and will bring Jiro to him so that Jiro can get his revenge. Tenkai brings Jiro to the man, who at that point is now severely injured after fleeing from and doing battle with Tenkai's subordinates. Instead of Tenkai or his subordinates finishing him off, Tenkai convinces Jiro to deal the finishing blow in order to get revenge on the man for killing his family. Now that Jiro has no family and nowhere to go, Tenkai takes him to a temple where he is trained as a shinobi. Jiro learns that his father was the owner of the dagger, so after training at the temple for several years and learning how to fight, he sets out on a journey to try to find any info he can about his father. On his journey, Jiro comes across an Ainu village where an elder of the village recognizes his blade. He tells Jiro that the blade belonged to the previous chief of the village and was given to a man who married his daughter. The chief's daughter now lives in the village alone, and Jiro goes to meet her. When he meets her, he finds out that she is his biological mother, and she tells him about his father and reveals to him everything that happened in the past. Jiro's father came to the village while working for Tenkai. He was sent to discover the secret of a rumored treasure that was connected to the village. He ends up falling in love with Jiro's mother, and he decides to cut ties with Tenkai, and the two of them flee. While fleeing from Tenkai, in order to save Jiro's life from them, they send him and the dagger down the river, where he's eventually picked up by the woman who raises him. Jiro then realizes that he was tricked by Tenkai, and the man that he killed was in fact his father. The dagger holds some clue to the location of the treasure, but Tenkai, not being able to find any information on where the treasure is located, he tried to use Jiro, hoping Jiro would be able to find out where the treasure is. Tenkai hoped by retracing Jiro's father's footsteps and coming to the Ainu village, Jiro would stumble on some clue that would reveal some critical information about the location of the treasure. One of Tenkai's men that was following Jiro kills Jiro's mother, and Jiro is blamed for her death as well. He flees the Ainu village and sets off on another journey, this time to find out the location of the treasure and to get revenge on Tenkai for killing his parents. One of the most notable things about this movie is the quality of its animation and its cinematography. The film is full of great fight scenes and action sequences that make use of Rintarou's signature style, with very visually stunning uses of colors and lights and shadows to give these scenes a unique look and style that feel unique from any other animation that I've seen. Throughout Jiro's journey, he comes across many enemies and assassins that are after him, which leads to a lot of really unique, exciting, and visually stunning battles. Some of the battles remind me of the fight scenes from a future Kawajiri animation Ninja Scroll, where the main character fights against bizarre enemies with various techniques and skills. Jiro's fight against the Matsumai 3 is a good example of this. This movie also has one of the more engaging plots out of the anime movies that I have seen. In some ways, it's a historical period drama dealing with conflict between shinobi working as spies for the shogunate. There's several references to real-life historical figures and events, such as Mark Twain or Captain Kidd. There's an underlying plot of the military conflicts going on in Japan at the time, and the involvement of foreign powers in those conflicts. The movie also has a great sense of adventure, where the main character sets off on this long journey, full of hardships, and meets a lot of new allies on his journey. The film goes through a number of settings, even eventually leading to the United States at one point, and briefly even has a Wild West setting for a short bit. And the film also has a romance subplot, so it ticks a lot of boxes on a lot of different genres and styles. So there's a lot of different things that you can find to enjoy here, depending on what type of genres you like. The setting is something that I find unique because it takes place in a time period that few anime seem to take place in. We have a lot of series that take place in a feudal setting or take place in a modern or at least post-World War II era, but there's not many series that take place in the late 1800s or early 1900s like this film does. One of the only ones that I could think of is Golden Kamui, which is a really great manga series that I've read pretty recently. It also takes place a little bit later than this, I think in like the early 1900s. But that series does make reference at one point to one of the battles that take place near the end of this movie. And it just so happens that that series is also based around a search for a hidden treasure. And as a side note, since I mentioned Golden Kamui, I would definitely recommend reading that if you haven't read it. It's definitely one of the best manga series I've read in a long time. It just ended recently, so it's fully completed now, and was an absolutely wild ride that kept me absolutely entertained and engrossed on every single page all the way through. So back to Kamui no Ken. For this film, I'm going to give it 4.5 stars out of 5. To me, it's one of the most memorable and overall best anime films of the 80s. It has incredible visuals and cinematography that remain one of the most memorable, even out of the hundreds of anime I've seen from that time period, as well as having one of the best stories out of any classic anime. So if you haven't seen this one, I definitely recommend it. And that's going to do it for this video. Once again, please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.